And so I think maybe that's kind of helpful to keep in mind. And I think, if we're all being honest here, we know that reading Richard Rohr's, particularly this book on the divinity, might be a real challenge. And so I think sometimes his style, sometimes his content, sometimes the structure, can perplex or maybe even turn off people. And I'd like for each of you to sort of maybe explain how you would address that challenge.
Well, I think, his style is more intuitive. His style is more contemplative, if you want. He engages in all sorts of images and metaphor to get at what he believes to be the wisdom in the contemplative tradition. Almost associated with the mystical as well. I mean, so when he writes out of that vein. He doesn't write to prove facts or to logic or whatever, but more to get a handle on this mystery that we find difficult to understand, and to do it in a variety of ways, using not only images but also connections with science, with the worldview, with the universe, all that. So I could see how he could be. If you're not used to that kind of writing, it could be a challenge to read. But if you stay with him, I think you'll get a lot out of it.
Teresa?
I think that if you approach this book thinking that you are reading a systematic theology account of the Trinity, then you're going to be disappointed and probably discouraged. I would approach this book, and it's been helpful to me, and this is probably why I like listening to Richard Rohr maybe more than I like reading him, is that his book is very conversational. So it helps me to approach this book as if I was having a conversation with Father Rohr.
Oh, good. Yeah. So personally, I did at times initially when I first read the book struggle. But I'm used to, because I lead discussions on books, I'm used to sort of being in unfamiliar territory. But the second time I read it, he offers on page 58 this little poem by an Irish priest and poet named John O'Donoghue. And this is the poem. It's very short. I would love to live like a river flows, carried by the surprise of its own unfolding. And to me, that was the key to approaching Richard Rohr's book. That he loves to write like a river flows. And it, undulates, and while, it stays relatively on course, there are eddies and currents that come up, but bubble up and go down. And that, to me, opened up the book. That really did open up the book.